and welcome back to part 24 of Final Fantasy VII Remake, where today, we're going to wrap up this ghost hunt. We need to get out of this train graveyard to try and get back to Sector 7 before all our fears are realised and thousands of people die as a consequence. We need to at least let people know that things are going to collapse before it does, but there's always a hurdle before we get there.
Huh? Tifa!
Okay, it's time for, unfortunately, what I consider to be the weakest boss fight in the game, the Ghoul. This giant ghost-like being plays off of the gimmick of the ghost we have fought beforehand, just enhanced and taken to its logical extreme. At certain parts during this fight, physical attacks will be completely worthless and only magic will harm it in any degree. Equally, there are other parts of the fight where it's the other way around. It's dependent on whether or not you can see the being entirely or whether it is transparent to an extent. If it's more transparent, you need to be using magic. If it's more physical, you need to be using physical attacks. Which is all well and good saying, until you acknowledge hard mode. And hard mode is the reason why I grew to detest this boss fight. Because in hard mode, you have limited magic. In hard mode, there's 2 boss fights in this chapter. This is the first one. In hard mode, most of the enemies have anti-physical zones or anti-physical moments. This boss sucks in hard mode. It's genuinely, it's an interesting challenge, I'll give it that, but it doesn't mean it's a fun challenge. It's a work of art sometimes to deal with it, and when things like that happen, if you're playing in hard mode, if you miss a spell, if you miss a fire or Firaga, depending on what you go with for magic usage, I'd recommend Fire because, you know, you only have so much MP. That you reach a point where after a while you sit there and go, I should just tank this death. You sit there and immediately go, I'm just going to hit pause and click restart from checkpoint or something because I'm wasting too much MP. You have to kind of micromanage it so much. What I would personally recommend trying to do is make it so only one character is the magic user. And have that character try and drag out, maybe even just basic fire spells, just to try and lure the thing back into the physical form, so then the other 2 can attack directly again. But even then, that's not ideal. Additionally though, in hard mode you will have more materia, you will have more variety of materia, so it's not the end of the world. You will still have options. It's just, it doesn't mean it gets any easier. And sometimes, like right there, we just got the stagger, but the moment we did, we tapped the phase shift. So we lost all our effort, basically. We finally just barely got the stagger, and it was immediately gone. Which is something that is criticised quite a lot of the bosses in this game, and I'll be curious to see how they adapt or change them in later parts. Because I personally, for the most part, think it's fine. It's just there are a couple examples, like this boss, that feel like you have to work a little too hard for it. And that's that phase shifting takes precedence over any action you do. If you've like just staggered the opponent, decide to go all in on it, maybe you have a limit break that you unleash on it, you spend it, but on the first hit it hits the limit, it hits the next phase. The rest of your attacks don't matter, it will do 0 damage and it will go into the next phase. And you will lose your limit because you just spent it. Things like that, yeah, I get why people criticise it, because it is frustrating that your efforts are immediately snatched from you if you touch the next phase. It's only when it's the last phase of the fight that you know you can get away with it. And on your first playthrough, you don't know when the last phase of the fight is, because they're not split up by quarters evenly usually. If it's a 4-phase fight, that doesn't mean it's going to be a quarter per bar. It could be a sliver for the first phase, and then a ginormous chunk for the second and third, and then a sliver for the fourth. You don't know that. And a lot of bosses in this game do that. They're never equal on when they make the phase shifting points. It's very rare for it to be like split evenly. Even when it was like fights like Roach or Reno, where they only have 2 phases, it wasn't exactly halfway. It was a little before it that they shifted into phase 2. But in this boss fight, well, in boss fights where it requires a hell of a lot more time to work to get the stagger bar going than some of the other bosses we've dealt with, and having several phases, it does start to stack up a little as making this fight more frustrating, because every time it feels like you're making progress, the game like locks you out because the next phase needs to start up. Which, yes, it does mean progress, but it's still an annoying progress, you know? But shifting to a positive, though, the theme for this guy is really cool. It's different from like a lot of the other tracks, and it's an entirely unique track for this game, and it plays off of the other tracks that have played whilst in the train graveyard, just taken to its like natural conclusion and its natural exaggeration point of like extreme hype. That I think it works. It makes it a really engaging and intense fight because of the music when you're trying to figure it out on your first run. I said, on your first run on normal, this fight is a unique challenge that's fun because of how it's different. It's in hard mode that I think a lot of its problems start to show up. Additionally, I just used Planet Protection from Aerith. The way it works is that for a good while, until that blue marker underneath all the characters runs out, the casts are entirely immune to physical attacks. So that can save your neck in certain fights, but the problem is, the very first boss fight after you get access to it is this boss. That is very reliant on magic or not physically counting attacks, making Planet's Protection kind of worthless. There is a boss later on where it's a little bit more worthwhile, but even that boss uses a lot of magic, so it's still kind of here or there. It's why I was saying before, when we first got it, like, Aerith's limit breaks is the only instance in the game where you have to kind of pick which one you want. Because her first limit break, Healing Wind, is going to be more viable to you in this fight than this one.
I'll take care of them.
But we managed to break the stagger, and thankfully I believe this is the last phase, so now it's in the stagger. I use this opportunity to do everything in my power to kill it right here and now. Because this fight, thankfully the Ghoul doesn't have too much health. As you can see, we just ripped through the last third real quick.
That was fun. All this time, you were waiting for someone to come and play with you.
Huh. What are you talking about? Come on, let's get back to the crane.
For winning that fight, we got the Subversion materia. I don't know when I equip it, but I equip it soon-ish. It might actually be right now, but I'm not sure. Oh no, I think I finally take off. I don't know, I didn't get refocus a second time in that fight. I get the 2 refocuses later for the battle intel. There's Subversion. You want to max this out. Breach and Dispel are amazing, and look at that little extra description. Resistances, instant death. There's a specific enemy later on in the game that we're going to be fighting in a side quest. It's in chapter 14, and if you played the game you already know who I'm talking about. That only uses instant kill attacks. So that skill is going to be your best friend. You want that materia on someone, anyone, just to give you a better shot. After the fight, do make sure to backtrack to this bench though, because yeah, there's another one coming up, but there's still enemies potentially between here and there, depending on how out of the way you've gone and how out of the way you're going to have to go now to get back there. Because once we've done this boss, the power's back on, so we can lower the train again and get out of this warehouse mini dungeon thing that we were in. And get back outside to try and get back towards Sector 7 before things get way out of hand. Which as the player, like I said, we already know. It's the anxiety thing that they're building upon from the last part, where we as the player know what's happening, but they as the characters do not. And we're just trying to race back because they are concerned of what they don't know, whilst we are concerned because of what we do know. So we kind of want to rush them. But at the same time, they don't know, so it makes sense why they take their time in a lot of ways.
Just like we hoped.
But now we've lowered that train, we can go through it back from where we were, down the stairs nearby. So heading west and down the stairs, you can then hop back onto that train and then take it through to the next little zone, which will then eventually take us back around to where we need to actually go. And so we get to appreciate the fog lights a little bit more and how they affect how they do the hazing with it. Over here, so there's an enemy there. There's a few like spectral glows here and there, just kind of lingering around. And there's some loot, so you know, more worth it. I would have thought they would have given you like a new weapon or something after that boss fight for loot, but at the same time, I guess you've been spoiled for new weapons up until this point. And for the record, every character gets 6 weapons in this game, so they'll probably get more in future parts. I don't know how many more. I mean, that's just something we'll have to work out as we go, I suppose. But because everyone gets 6 weapons, when you get to this stage in the game and characters start hovering around 4 and 5, and you're like, well, hang on a minute, isn't there like 18 chapters in this game? Yeah, there's a couple weapons that some characters just will not get until super late. The best skill in the game for Cloud is tied to his last weapon. We're not getting that anytime soon. Because we haven't even got his 5th weapon. In my recording, I haven't even got his 5th weapon yet. Let alone worry about the beauty of what's in his 6th weapon. Barrett's still on 2 weapons. So the priority is going to be on him when he eventually rejoins.
We're through.
Great. Let's head outside.
Huh? Wait. A girl? Marlene?
And the kids that the Black Wind carries away have to live in the train graveyard forever and ever. So you have to stay far, far away from there.
All right then, I will.
Oh, you know Betty? Yesterday she went with her daddy to... When is Daddy coming back?
Actually, he might not make it home tonight. Marlene, what are you? We can't waste any more time here.
You see, when I first saw that scene, I thought what they were going to go for is that the ghosts were going to mess and get inside of like everyone's head, or maybe just Tifa's head throughout the whole stretch, so they're already more like anxious and worn down going into the next chapter. But they kind of don't do that. That scene's more there to put the old rumor back in your head that children might have been kidnapped here at some point by the ghosts that exist. It's not confirmed, but it's just the whole Marlene mentions the old rumor, so it's put back in your head that maybe these ghosts are more sinister than first thought. And that's kind of as far as it goes. They don't really mess with Tifa any further beyond that, which I really thought they were going to. But I'm complaining, like, I get it, like, they go a different direction, and I appreciate the different direction they go, but it's still odd that they set that up and it only be a one-off. So it's literally only there to kind of put the rumor back in the player's head. But once we start moving this, so we can start making a path across, we have a little bit of a gauntlet. It isn't an infinite amount of enemies, but there's a healthy amount that are going to keep on showing up for a while to try and waste time while you wait for the thing to move into place. But it moves into place quite quickly, and there's too many enemies. So we're still going to be fighting these ghosts by the time the thing finishes moving. And to be fair, there's nothing stopping you from running away. But there is a fleeing system that if you book it away from enemies too much, you will eventually leave the fight. And you'll disengage, and you'll even come up saying fleeing on the top of the screen sort of thing. But I just don't really do that. The only time you're going to see fleeing pop up on the screen is just when I'm making space for myself and I get so far away that the game thinks I might be trying to retreat away. When in reality I'm just trying to space out more so I can heal or revive people. Because to jump the gun a little, chapter 14 I get messed up a lot. And in chapter 15 I get messed up a lot. And it's all because of that one battle intel I'm trying to get before we finish the game. Where you need to max out one of every magic based materia. because I have one of every magic-based materia basically equipped for the whole of Chapter 14 and 15, I don't have any of the extra materia that you would have elsewhere that would help turn the tide of battle. And so everyone's at a disadvantage, and so a lot of the later half of Chapter 14, and especially Chapter 15, you're going to see me heal a lot, and have to revive a lot, and have a few closer calls than needed, because I'm not using the ATB I should be using, because I'm trying to max out that battle intel before the end of the game. Specifically before, like, I think it's chapter... Well, let me think. I think it's chapter 16. I think it's the tail end of chapter 16. It's the last opportunity you get to speak to Chadley to get that battle intel done. So I'm trying to get it done before then. It's highly unlikely because some of them are huge grinds, like getting Rays to Arise. That's like 5,000 points. But I'm going to give it my best go. And like I said, if I'm close when I get there, there is like a grinding room right next door. And I'll see if I can try and get them in there. But at the same time, it then runs the risk of not wanting to be over-leveled too much. Even though I don't really think leveling is a problem in this game, like, it doesn't feel like, regardless of what you do, regardless of what side content you do or don't, your level always feels just right for whatever you're fighting. Even if you're like a much higher level or a much lower level, it feels like the game's balanced around whatever level you currently are, as opposed to making you have to catch up to whatever level they are. Well, at least that's the impression I got, because the same goes to hard mode. When you go into hard mode, you'll start at the level you finish normal, and not near the level cap. And if you grind up to the level cap, it doesn't change much. It's still the same kind of difficulty, I find.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
Huh? I think that's...
Plate separation code is... Got it. Yeah, of course I do. We just have the damn thing whenever. It's just that...
Death wish or something? Because I sure as shit don't.
What's happening? Do we have a problem?
Not really. Small arms fire from some local boys trying to defend the building.
Where would you feel like that? Send me reinforcements. The more players that take the stage, the better.
So that's what we are.
Contact me when the mission is complete.
Tifa.
They're really gonna drop the plate.
They won't if Barrett and the others have anything to say about it.
All we can do now is keep moving.
Please let us be in time.
Before we acknowledge the fact that now the cast do know what's going on, and now panic has set in because they all know the danger and the music ramps up, I just want to wrap up my conversation about the whole difficulty thing. The only thing I will say that is a noticeable difference is doing a New Game Plus run on normal instead of hard. The enemies do seem to have a level cap of their own per chapter. Like, some enemies will eventually peak at, like, say, in chapter 1 they'll peak at like level 8. Or they'll peak at like level 9 sort of thing. Like, they do still have a limit per chapter in normal. It's just hard mode where it feels like if you're level 30, everything's level 30. If you're level 50, everything's level 50, you know? Like, that's the kind of impression that I got when playing through hard mode. That it's always based on your based, when I can speak English, on your level. Whilst in normal, it tries to be, but there is a limiter per se. It's just you're not really going to bump into it on your casual playthrough, even if you grind.
Would you look at that?
And I know I'm talking over this cutscene, but it's only pushing this. It's not much. It's not the big cutscene that we've got yet. You can see there's enemies floating around though, which isn't so pretty. Like more drakes lingering. But there is an item over here that you can now reach because we pushed this. Which actually begs the question, if this was pushed, wouldn't this item box be crushed? Will you consider where the trains were a second ago? Whatever. You need to push both those trains though, because then it will move the path. It's a very simplified version of the puzzle of the original train graveyard, where you did have to move trains around to make your path forward. And to be fair, that wasn't a complicated puzzle either. It's just they've made it so you just if you press each train once, you're good. You don't need to worry about anything else. Whilst before, you did have to at least shuffle one or two of them back afterwards so you could get where you need to go. And we managed to get the Ray of Light, or the Ray of Judgment ability, sorry, for Aerith. And it's like, oh, result, just in time for her to potentially get a new weapon, because we are actually very close to her next weapon. And like I said, it's the one weapon of the game, actually one of two weapons that I tend to spot people miss easily if they haven't played the original. The other one that's missable, it can be easily missed even if you haven't played the original, because you don't realise that what's being asked of you isn't exactly what it means. But that's about as vague as I'll be. I'll explain it more when we get there, but there's a weapon for Barrett later on that is very easy to just completely miss if you're unaware that when the game says, hey, do you want to do this, it's not being 100% honest with you. And if you realise that it's not being 100% honest and go for it, it becomes more worth it later on. You see, this is what I mean. We go and pull this one as well. Now the path's complete. We just press each one that we go to, and our path is built for us.
Thanks.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's go indeed. But like I said, the Ghoul was only one of two boss fights. We're actually approaching the second rather rapidly. We've still got a little ways to go yet, but we're getting there. And this is a fight that, in hard mode, I think is one of the harder fights in the game. But not because of really the fight itself, but almost entirely because of the wear out that you'll have from the magic spendage on Ghoul and the magic spendage on the ghosts you fought so much up until that point, unless you've been extremely cautious and like controlling with how you've handled it. Like I said, it's not guaranteed. You might be handling it way better than I do, but I personally found myself very limited in what I could do when I got to that fight because of everything that I'd used, and I kind of, when I got through it by the skin of my teeth. There's actually a series of videos, more in the PS4 Antics mega playlist than anything else, where I went through almost all the bosses in hard mode, because originally the final bosses were blocked scenes, but they're not anymore. And you can see in that, I get through that fight by the absolute skin of my teeth.
Almost there. Come on.
Right.
Aerith!
The kids that the Black Wind carries away have to live in the train graveyard forever and ever.
You're just trying to help, aren't you? You're the one who...
Are you ready? Well, are ya? I'm ready now! Me too! Found you! No way! We found you!
You got me. Hey, where's Aerith?
I'm ready! I'm ready! I'm right here. Mom?
Aerith!
Hey, we found you.
I guess you did.
Let's go!
That scene I really liked though. Of some of the things I've criticised of this chapter, that scene with Aerith, we don't really get much of that in the original. In fact, we barely get it at all, but she was always a weird, different child. That's what they're trying to establish there, so a lot of the other kids kind of neglected her and stayed away from her because she was different, that she is just this oddball child to begin with for reasons we'll learn more of as the game goes on. But you're gonna see at the start of this fight, and you should do it too, your secret weapon is here, as a reference back to the Eligors who were normal enemies in the original but now has been promoted to a boss. This guy has a weapon. This guy has a new weapon for Aerith tied to it, and I think that's why they have the unique Aerith scene showing off more of her background and giving you a glimmer of the life she had. Because of the ties that she had to Eligor, that you get a new weapon for Aerith from the boss that immediately follows the scene focusing on Aerith. And I was really happy to see that that came back. It does immediately put it in your head though, if you haven't played the original 7, to know that there aren't any other enemies right now that are going to have weapons tied to them. It will put the fear of God into you and make you start assessing every enemy you come to that they might have a weapon. But as far as this game's concerned, this is the only enemy that has a weapon tied to it. I imagine in future parts they'll do it more, and I look forward to when they do that. But this is all you need to worry about for now. That you get the only way to get that weapon is by stealing it from Eligor. Alternatively, however, if you miss your chance and don't steal it from Eligor, it's not the end of the world. There is a shop later in the game that you can buy it from. It will just be more expensive. So it's the option between getting it for free now or getting it expensive later. And it will be way later because starting from the end of next chapter, without spoiling and getting into it, Aerith's going to be out of your party for a while. But this is why you got the submersion or the submission or the breach materia from that last boss, because you're expected to use it on this one. When he starts flying up, he'll always cast Reflect on himself, meaning magic is out the window. Any magic you casted, it's coming straight back at you. Breach will remove the Reflect against its will. The only problem with this, however, is that it costs 2 full ATBs to use Breach, so that's quite a grind up if you're not ready for it. Like, if you've just used something when it goes to do it, well, you're out of luck. And secondly, the Reflect doesn't last long, so I find it kind of needless. Like, I'd rather wait for the Reflect to run out and then just use what I want to use on it, because it's already run out. Like, it's already gone from underneath its health bar, instead of worrying about trying to get rid of it immediately. Additionally, starting from phase... I think you can do it from phase 1 actually, but starting from phase 2, I'm going to start acknowledging those 2 wheels. You can break the wheels on the thing, and if you break both of them, it's a free stagger. And if you can get a free stagger when it's on the last phase of the fight, well, you've pretty much won. It's just doing so that's the real hassle. Like you can see right now, it's gone back up again, but it's slowly starting to lower down to the ground, so the physical attackers can do more work. Because similar to the Air Buster with Barret, Aerith is your only real good damage dealer for physical attacks, because Cloud and Tifa have to put so much extra work to get the effort in, especially because this boss doesn't stop moving when it's in the air, so there's a good chance Cloud and Tifa, with their extremely limited air combat, will miss. But what's also kind of annoying is that because this boss doesn't stop moving when it's in the air, good luck landing your ice spells. It's weak to ice, but Blizzard takes a second to explode after it lands. It isn't instant. It will hit, and the hit will do 0 damage and will barely affect stagger. Also, this is unfortunate. Yeah, there go them. They're wasted.
Can you take over for me?
But I suppose it worked out because it put on Reflect just at that moment. So it would have been a double Blizzara that would have come straight back at Aerith. So yeah, I guess I should take my blessings where I can that turned out that way. Because now I can finally get the breach off. There we go. Now we can do magic again. Wahoo! It's weak to ice, but oh, it's already moving, so it ends up missing, I believe. If you have Blizzaga at this point, you might just barely catch it because of the blast radius being so big. But I don't actually know off the top of my head. But you're going to see that I make a lot of efforts to try and get like cheeky blizzards and Blizzaras out whilst it's moving, and it never works out in my favour. Thankfully, however, I get an opportunity to show off Shiva before she gets benched at any point. Because Shiva is so much more magic based than physical based in terms of the stat distribution that a lot of the time you're going to want other things. But Shiva ends the phase outright and it goes into phase 3. But the thing has to go into the sky first before it lets phase 3 actually begin. So we have this little annoyance here where we have to wait for it to circle around. We can't do anything until it decides to go back up. But now it's in phase 3, the wheels are your top priority, as it's going to shoot lasers here, there and everywhere as well. I also like that little bit where you get more tidbits and more little glimmers of Tifa and Aerith's friendship constantly growing. That, like, without hesitation, the moment the laser came in, Tifa dived for Aerith to try and get her out of dodge. It's sweet to see, because like I said, even though it was very much memed upon and a lot of people knew it wasn't serious, a lot of people joked about the rivalry between Aerith and Tifa, despite the fact there's never really been one. Well, a lot of people joke that they fight for Tifa's attention, and although in this game they make the odd little wink to it, like to that joke, there's no actual rivalry. They're best buddies that more just have a common interest on having like a history with Cloud. Aerith just happened to be more recent history, whilst Tifa is more old-fashioned history. But there's no like jealousy at play. There's nothing like that. It's just two friends that happen to have a third friend, and it's a shared third friend, you know. When Eligor's on the ground, though, he does this really annoying shit with the spear that you can see right now, and occasionally he'll make summon these little magic spears just above characters to interrupt things. They do very little damage, they just interrupt, making this third phase more frustrating than anything else, because you can't do too much to challenge it. But here, the javelin bolts, when it does the individual ones that come out at you like every now and then, they are only there to interrupt what you're doing. But your priority now should absolutely be break those goddamn wheels. Because if you can break the wheels, you can stop it from doing that. And it's what I end up doing. I immediately have Tifa go for a wheel with her limit break when she gets the opportunity, instead of the enemy. And so once we break one wheel, we can restrict what it does, and then put the priority in on Infinity's End to try and smash the other wheel with the AoE. It ends up not happening immediately, but we've got enough work in. It's like Eligor's nearly dead, the wheel's nearly busted, we can steal this fight now. We can use this to our advantage and end this in a matter of a few seconds. We just need to break that other wheel and we're done. And there it goes. Now it's staggered, now it's dead. In the same vein of the Ghoul, once you get that final stagger, the fight's over regardless of the health it's got. You just need to hit it. So bust those damn wheels.
Hold on, guys. We're coming.
And you can go to hell!
Let's go.
Right.
Right.
It's that ghost.
So long.
Thus ends the miniature story arc of the train graveyard. Now that we understand the ghosts, understand what they wanted to do, and understand why they were the way they were, they ultimately were just kids wanting to have fun, child spirits lost in the night that wanted to enjoy the life they no longer had again. We now can move on back to our main priority. The new skill we got for Aerith is the Illustrious Shield, a defensive, like, counter-esque ability where you put up a big flower shield in front of you, and if the enemy hits it, it explodes. So it is like a counter tool. You put it up to try and trick the enemy into hitting it. However, I don't max it out. I don't max it out in time. Going into the next chapter, it becomes super story driven, and there's very few fights that Aerith gets to participate in. So I don't max it out in time. You have to really grind it out if you want it now.
We made it!
You are surrounded! Stand down and surrender to public security immediately! Shinra does not negotiate with terrorists! Resist and we will use lethal force! I repeat, Shinra does not negotiate with terrorists! Resist and we will use lethal force!
Got your lethal force right here, asshole!
Drop the weapon now! Screw you, you fascist prick!
Dropping a whole plate. Just like that. No. No way! Tifa!
Please, let us through!
What are you?
Cloud, Tifa, we have to get past, whatever it takes.
Right.
From one chaos of spirits to the next, the weird spectre phantom things that we've had an on-again, off-again bumping into are back to interrupt us once more. For some reason try and stop us from proceeding and just be a real hindrance. We need to deal with it, and it's dealt with in the exact same way you dealt with it at the end of Chapter 4. You deal with the other spectres around, and it will weaken the main one, allowing you to get your strikes in and do what you need to do. However, this start counts as the start of a new chapter, which is an absolute goddamn blessing. On hard mode, like, you've just gone through everything like this, and you get to go into this with full MP and full health on everyone again. Like, this is such a relief fight, even with the fact that it's a bit draining. Like, that you can just go like, oh god, I've got everything again, result. I wouldn't recommend using any magic though, even saying that. It's just nice to know that if you get a bit dangerous, you can spend a cure and not panic too much now, because it's literally the opening fight. It's the whole, like, checkpoint confidence thing that you get at the start of a chapter because you have now magic to spend. So you can have that little bit more assurance and play a little bit more haphazardly because you know you're still going to have a heal to work off. And You should have Prey maxed out, so you know, Prey's going to be quite nice. And hopefully a Chakra. You can have multiple Chakras, but hopefully a Chakra maxed out as well to try and make the most of it. Here's me effortlessly spamming the Illustrious Shield to try and max it out as soon as possible. But this is like the only fight Aerith gets in this chapter, I'm not kidding. Because very shortly, the team's going to divide to try and minimize the damages as much as possible. Aerith's split has no fighting.
There's too many!
Aerith?
Come on!
But now, after effectively wasting our time and putting our heroes in more jeopardy of that plate falling, we now get to proceed onwards to try and see what happens next. And it's going to start getting very miserable very quickly.
What you got? Come on!
That's Barret!
You okay?
Cloud! It's Shinra! They're trying to take out the pillar!
I know.
I have to go back! Barret and the others are still...
Stop. Stay with Wedge. I'm going up.
Sure.
I'm going too! I can still fight. Biggs, they were shooting at me and
Wedge, please. Let Cloud handle it.
Don't worry, I'll patch him up.
Hang on, guys! Help is coming!
Wedge, listen to me. You stay here with them.
About time you showed up, Martin. Gotta do my part to clear the path before you steal the show.
In the original game, Wedge didn't have that grappling hook. He collided with the ground and died. Yet, I'm not kidding. I'm not fucking with you. That's genuinely what happened in the original 7. Wedge fell to his death from that point. He didn't have the grapple hook. He didn't have any of that. That's a change in the remake. An active decision they made to alter things. And yeah, when I saw that, I was like, please, for the love of God, don't have Wedge die later on. Please, for the love of God. You've shown that he can survive. It doesn't change the main plot if he lives or dies in that sense. Like, the main plot and everything that the game goes through remains that way, regardless of whether he lives or dies. So for the love of God, let him live this time around. Mix it up. Make it so we have to keep guessing. And the fact that they did that, I was like, that made it exciting to me. The fact that they were prepared to mix things up and change things. If you've played the original, you know what I'm inferring to when I say it puts other ideas for much later in the story into your head that I want them to toy with. What I think it all means and what I think it will actually result to, I will spoil and talk about at one point, but not right now. When we get to the credits, literally the credits, I will talk about what I think things mean and where I think the story is going. And with my theorizing, I will spoil things from the original story from 20 odd years ago, but I will explicitly warn that when I get to it. It's one of the most well-known plot twists in gaming, but even for the two of you that have lived under a rock, or people that just never grew up with Final Fantasy, so are just not in the know and got into it later, I don't want to ruin that for you, because it is there's a reason why it's one of the most infamous twists in gaming, and so recognizable in the gaming space to the same extent as like Darth Vader being Luke's father in Star Wars 5 in Strikes Back, you know? Like, it's that level of knowledge and that level of infamy of how big of a deal it was when it originally happened. But it doesn't change the fact that there are people that never played, that never got into gaming, or maybe were born after 97, or, you know, just things like that that just never really got into Final Fantasy, and so were aware of that twist. So I won't spoil it for you if you are one of those people that haven't. It's just, I will warn you, I will be doing it when we get to the credits, because I want to talk about what I think they're going to do in the future. Everyone has their theories on what they think this remake's going to do as it goes on in future parts, and I have my own too, even though mine are kind of unanimous. Like, some of my theories, you'll sit there and go, yeah, everyone thinks that, and yeah, it's because it makes sense, and I think it would be really smart for them to do it. But hopefully there'll at least be one or two little things that I bring up that make you go, oh, okay. As we power on our way here to try and make sure that now we know Wedge is okay, or okay enough, that Biggs and Jesse are as well, because they're going to be up here.
Biggs! You made it. No, I might not. Hey, is Wedge?
Don't worry. He'll bounce back.
That's good to hear. Could have used some extra padding myself.
Don't talk.
It's pretty bad up there. Cloud, promise me, don't let it be for nothing.
I won't.
You're a good man. Giving me that comfort. Oh, one more thing. The Leaf House. It's an orphanage. In the Sector 5 slums. The kids, they're great. I used to visit.
That you'll have to do yourself.
Let me guess. Not a fan of kids.
No.
But you have so much in common. Good luck, Cloud. Our future is in your hands.
This isn't over.
And then they immediately pull the rug under you again. They put it in your head that some characters might survive fates they previously escaped, and then kill Biggs, showing you that no, Wedge was the one off. The way they handle Biggs' death is really well done. I really feel something for it. Like, I already have a lot of attachment to Seven's cast and the Seven's world. Seven's one of my all-time favorite experiences, and I love the world it is, and I've already mentioned before that this game drove me to tears many a times going through it. Biggs was one of them. I cried at Biggs' death on my first playthrough, and I cried hard. And it's not even the most depressing thing that happens in this chapter, but that'll be on the next video. But that final bit for Biggs, where he says, "Let me guess, not a fan of kids, but you have so much in common." I was like, that's such a fucking good final line. It genuinely is. But I'm going to wrap this up now. Thank you so much for watching as per. And next time, we will try and see if we can stop other casualties. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace.